Let's get ready to rumble!
This was a good card, in my opinion. I enjoyed it. I think Frank Warren is now providing Eddie Hearn a type of competition that can only be healthy for British boxing. First, I saw Ryan Walsh take on Marco McCullough. This was his third defense of his British featherweight title, and Ryan has now been given the distinction of being a Lonsdale belt holder. He's won it outright, defending it 3 times. Well done. Ryan was the harder puncher, the stronger fighter. Marco McCullough tried hard, wasn't good enough, boxed well in spots, well enough to make it relatively competitive for some rounds, but Ryan closed the show. At this stage, the Walsh family were buzzing, you know? Then we saw 2 unbeatens. A light middleweight taking on Joe Pigford from Southampton. He was 6 foot, is a tall, big light middle, and Aaron had no problems at all landing on Joe's jaw. No problems at all throughout the whole fight. Pigford, very upright, was getting hit by uppercuts, rights over the top. Aaron was getting off with the jab. Pigford had his moments. Pigford either has a great chin or Aaron doesn't hit as hard as it looks like he hits, and I think he hits pretty hard. So maybe Joe has got some iron in the old whiskers there. But his defense sucked. But this is boxing, you know. Some guys are punchers. They're not designed to throw a whole load of punches. You know, the brain and the mind works in tandem with who you are. If you believe in your power sometimes, it's impossible for you to throw a lot of punches. Like someone like Gavin Reese throws a whole load of shots, right? But they're not very powerful. He has to throw a whole load. When Joe opened up a couple of times, he looked pretty useful. And when he cut loose in the 5th and knocked Aaron out, it was like, oh my gosh. But I was saying from early that as well as Aaron was boxing, he didn't set up the body shots which were available with that long torso and that upright posture, and wasn't really using distance like he needed to be. He allowed his man to get a second wind. That's why you got to put them body shots in early, and Aaron didn't do that. Joe, the positives for Joe was when he did get the timing right from long range, he did catch Aaron with some good stuff. Even though he was slower, he had a longer reach, and when he timed his attacks, he looked better. There's a lot to work on there. I'm disappointed for Aaron. He's on my Facebook page. He'll be disappointed himself. How does he come back from that? Will he come back from that? We shall see. I don't know if Joe broke his heart because he took all of Aaron's best shots and started banging his gloves like he was getting stronger and like getting off and taking the punches. And sometimes that can mentally affect an opponent when you have such a contemptuous regard for your opponent's punches. Then Frank unveiled Daniel Dubois, his big heavyweight, who took on David Howe, 6'8". Dave looks like he could do better than what he does, but his chin and punch resistance are just horrible. Like, Dave Allen blew him away and he's been stopped a couple more times. And the first decent right hand that Dubois landed, out he went. Like, there was one jab that went in from Dubois, and Dave felt it, and you could see, Dave. Dave didn't want none of that. He didn't want that work, you know. And then, as he was backing towards the ropes in one exchange, one punch missed, a right hand, from which he retreated. That kind of inadvertently worked as a setup punch for the follow-up right hand. He went back to the ropes, there was nowhere to go, and an overhand right crashed onto the chin, and out went Dave. He could have got back up perhaps, but he was a little discombobulated, and Jeff Hines, did he count him out or stop it? It doesn't matter. I mean, Dave offered little resistance. Bring Moses Matuvo to take on Dubois, I say. A proper journeyman. I think at this stage he's ready for that. It will be his 4th fight. I want to give him a few rounds at least, you know. At least a few rounds. Because how long will it have been since he's went any kind of rounds in competitive setting, probably not since the amateurs. Then I saw Anthony Yarde take on Chris Hobbs and win the Southern Area title. When I saw Anthony throw that left hook to the body, the way he whipped it in, the effortless nature that he did it, the poise, I said, damn, that's a good punch. That's a good punch. And that's what won him the fight eventually. Chris Hobbs was game and tough, and he gave Anthony a few rounds, but it was one-sided as you can get. He was down twice in round 3, once in round 1, and 3 times in round 4. So he was like a yo-yo in there. He was a little tougher than a lot of Anthony Yarde's recent opponents, and he complained to the ref when it was stopped, but he was outclassed and outgunned. Radio Raheem said, "Congratulations on winning the title, even if only it's the Southern Area." There's a big problem with American boxing. I'm just going to say it. You know, just so ignorant, man. Like, you know, only if. That's our regional title for the Southeast, for London and the surrounding areas. It's not only if. You see, these guys, they just want to interview the Mayweathers, the Golovkins, and be at the big shows and how, yeah, he's doing these shows because Mayweather was there, and he'll do a Klitschko and Joshua show. But these guys have no idea about grassroots boxing. Only an ignorant dude, a New Jack, would say, if only the Southern Area title. The same title that Dennis Andrews, Chris Finnegan, Albert Finch, who beat Randolph Turpin. Same titles they had. Let me tell you just now, America, this is a transition period for a lot of people in boxing. While you have these kind of attitudes, it won't help the development of boxing all across the board where you are. It just won't. I'm telling you that now, you know. People acting like regional titles don't matter. They do matter. Chris Hobbs had to win that fighter from a Don Charles fighter, that's Derek Chisora's coach, right? In a controversial decision, which Don Charles believes is the worst decision he's ever witnessed in all the time he's been in boxing. And, you know, that's why I don't get upset when I talk about boxing. Like, people get upset when, you know, I'll say, yeah, it's just a cynical business. I don't get upset. I hear you guys crying all the time about, we can't get this guy to fight that guy and this guy. And I say, yeah, of course it's a cynical business. Because you guys don't care about local titles, amateur. You don't care about none of that. And then you're surprised when the guys at the top end with all their millions aren't playing fair, playing risk-reward. You see, these guys know you don't care about boxing like that. That's why they do you like that. If they saw you had a real passion for the sport, regional titles, prospects, Southern Area titles, not only if, USBA, they'd have to change their attitudes. But why should they? I don't think they should change. I'll be honest with you. I think you boxing fans are getting exactly what you deserve. Exactly. It's my opinion. Every tree has a root. Neglect the root, and thou shalt not harvest no fruit. That's not bad from off the top of the head, man. Anyway, good win for Anthony Yarde. Good win. And then Liam Walsh came out and got destroyed by Tank in the third. The first 2 rounds were relatively even. I think Tank probably shaded maybe the first 6 minutes, but Liam was definitely in it. They were both trying to feint each other. Walsh didn't buy the early feints, but when Tank turned it up in the third, it was one-sided and clinical and as conclusive as his mentor Mayweather would have liked. There was a left hook early in the round, and Liam didn't like it. He went on the defensive. He was hurt, and he went after him and started throwing his hands and got him out of there. Both men were southpaws. Some people complained about the nature of the stoppage, but Liam's legs were shaky, and he could have got hurt pretty badly. So, no complaints from me about the stoppage. First defense of his IBF Super Featherweight title. Successful trip. How good is the kid? Hits awfully hard, I tell you that much. Good center of gravity. Liam was struggling to nail him with that jab. Good boxing IQ. It's hard for me to see past the super featherweight division for the kid because he's so small. I think a lot of people are worrying if he could perhaps become a Broner Mark II. I think that's a worry for some people. I don't think he will. The TWT t-shirts that Team Walsh printed up will no doubt go out of style pretty quickly. Or maybe they'll keep them as a memento. Floyd wants to put Tank on the undercard of his McGregor fight, if that comes off. He wants to put Badu Jack on there too. Probably ended a little earlier than most people expected, but that's what happens when you're in there with a puncher, and he's definitely a puncher. Could possibly be the hardest hitting super featherweight out there. 18-0, 18 stoppages or knockouts. I was impressed. And yes, Frank Warren, I'm liking the multicultural, diverse look it has. And I can't remember what card it was the other month. Frank actually stole on Eddie. They had a card on the same day. I forgot who had what on what card. But I think it was the Kurt Seeds. Was it the Kurt? I'm not sure. No, the Kurt Seeds was a good card. Because that also had Jermaine Smile and his classic fight, which he lost for the super middleweight title. For the English super middleweight title. Not the British, you know. Like Radio Raheem said, oh, it's only the English belt. And oh God, he's only 19, I believe, Tank. He's only 19. Wow. 19? I don't know what they're going to do with Lomachenko right now, because if he keeps performing like that, they're going to call for it soon. Like, the public are going to call for it. What does Floyd do then? What does Gervonta do then? What does Al Heyman do? We shall see. Can he beat Lomachenko? Well, if he can find a way to get the power on the target, then we have a fight. If not, he might get washed. Who else can challenge Lomachenko? Who else? I tell you what. It might not be as straightforward a Lomachenko victory as a lot of people see it. Let me just say that now.